Okay, for lower limb vessels and abdominal stuff, we do have some preparation to do. The first thing that we need to do, and I'm not joking, is to remove the colon from the back of the body wall. Because we are going to be doing a dissection within the pelvis to find vessels that are going to go from the pelvic cavity into the limb. So, here's how you're going to do this. First of all, you're going to be careful not to cut gonadal vessels. Okay, those are vessels that were going to the testes or the ovaries. You can, however, cut off your ureter. We've already tested on that. Don't need it in the way anymore. So I'm just removing the ureter so it's no longer in the way. Alright. Now, what you're going to do is cut this fat blob that was next to the bladder so that you can see all the way down into the pelvic cavity. And you just need a very light incision, and then the rest is blunt dissection. So you're going to get down to as far down the colon as you can. Now, it's important also during this dissection that you don't cut through the mesocolon. That mesocolon has a blood vessel, which is the inferior mesenteric. I'm sorry, you can cut through the mesocolon. You don't want to cut through the actual inferior mesenteric artery. So remove the mesocolon from each side of that artery and leave the artery intact. That's a vessel we're going to identify. Okay, now you can go through some of the nerves and such that are in this pelvic area so that you can get down to the colon. And then you're going to take your scalpel and remove the colon from the body wall as far down as you can by cutting the connective tissue around it that anchors it into that cavity. Okay, and you want to be careful with your cutting, especially if your cat has a full rectum. You don't want poo in your cavity. Now, once you've gone all the way around that rectum and removed the connective tissue that's anchoring it to the body cavity wall, as far down as you can, you're going to cut through the rectum so that it comes loose away from the body wall. Then you're going to take a finger from a glove and use it as a little colon condom. Still not joking. Okay, so you're going to put that colon in there. That'll help any of the contents that may be in the colon from coming out for the rest of the semester. You're going to take a rubber band, anchor that colon condom on there, and now you've got a nicely secured, wrapped, what's going on here, colon. You don't have to worry about any poop. Like that. Okay? And still have inferior mesenteric artery intact. Okay, the next thing that you have to do is release the diaphragm from the body wall so that we can do some dissection up under the liver. So now that we've done cavities, we don't care about this diaphragm. I'm going to cut through the wall, and then I'm just going to take my scalpel and remove the diaphragm from its attachment like this, and that will loosen up some of the tension on the abdominal pelvic organs. You can even cut through the falciform ligament so that the liver is a little more mobile. Now you can get this out of the way if you would like to. I'm just going to use my scissors. Okay, and now we can easily lift away the abdominal organs so that we can do a dissection up underneath this cavity. Alright, so we're going to start with veins, and again, just like the upper vessels, once you do the veins, arteries are easy to find. So, we're going to find the inferior vena cava, and you can kind of see some of the blue along the back of the body wall. That's going to be it. So I'm just going to, there he is, run my probe along that nice vena cava there, all the way up as far as we can follow it, like that. Okay, there he is, nice vena cava. Okay, still not cutting off the gonadal vessels. And I'm going to get some more of this perirenal fat away from the kidney and from against the back of the body wall. It's going to make us easier to define and identify things. Okay. Alright, so some of the vessels off of the vena cava. This blue vessel that's running over the adrenal gland is the suprarenal vein. And then this big blue one that's going to the kidney is the renal vein. And then we're going to have some lumbar veins. And if you just gently pick up or remove sideways the vena cava, you're going to have 2 or 3 lumbar veins. They are branches from the vena cava that go back down around the lumbar area. This one doesn't have any pain in it. Okay, so identify 1 or 2 of those. Then you're going to have your iliolumbar vein. There's the artery on top of it. Iliolumbar vein, because it's in the ilium region where the pelvis is, and the lumbar region of the spine. Okay, so now we need to go into the pelvic and lower limb area. So, what you're going to do is, again, blunt dissection, find the end of that vena cava, and the vena cava is going to divide and have 1 branch for each lower limb. So down here in the pelvic cavity, here it is. Here's the end of the vena cava, and that's going to divide into external iliac veins, which are taking blood from the lower vessels and, from the lower limbs and bringing it up to make its way back to the heart. So here's a branch to the right leg and to the left leg. We're following the left vessel, so we're going down the limb this way. Alright, now you're going to make an incision in the wall of the pelvis so that we can open up a pathway between the pelvic cavity and the leg. And again, we don't want to cut off that vessel that we're going to identify, that we are careful not to cut off during the skinning, and that was the saphenous vein. Okay, so light incision, and then once you can see it, you're going to go back to blunt dissection. And I'm just removing connective tissue from over the vessels. Okay, right there. Alright. Light incision. Move the tissue. Like that. And now we have a nice pathway from the pelvic cavity to the vessels of the lower limb. Just like that. Okay, now that external iliac vein splits. One is going to go deep into the pelvic cavity, which you may not be able to see with this video, but I'll come around and point it out for you guys at your tables. The split that goes and stays within the pelvic cavity right here is your internal iliac vein. Commons are always going to split into internals and externals, just like the carotids did. So into the pelvis, internal iliac vein. The one that's going to connect and continue down the lower limb is the external iliac vein. Once it leaves that pelvic cavity, see that's where the wall was, it immediately is called the femoral vein. And then you're going to find its first split. Okay, so I'm just blunt dissection. These nerves and things that are superficial are going to muscle. Just going to make myself a path here. Light incisions, go back to blunt dissection. This split right here is going to give the femoral vein to become the great saphenous vein that we were careful not to cut off. And then the one that goes back behind the knee is named after that region, popliteal vein. And we're going to continue to follow that vein until we find the small saphenous. So again, muscle dissection, Little incision, move the tissue away. Little incision, move the tissue away. Little incision, move the tissue away. I'm going to go to blunt dissection, make sure I'm not cutting anything off that I'm not supposed to. And once I know where my vessel is, I'm going to remove some muscle so it's out of my way. There we go. Lifting it away from my vessels so I know I'm not cutting off my vessels I need to identify. Okay. And this popliteal vein is going to go back there pretty far behind the knee before the next split, which will be the small saphenous. So I'm just making sure that I can see what I'm doing by removing some muscle. Okay. Alright, so here's that popliteal, and you're going to go all the way down to the next split, which you may not be able to see with the video camera. I'll do my best to get some of this muscle out so that you can. Just cutting through this muscle tissue. Okay, that's back behind the knee. And the very next split, right here, is your small saphenous. And that small saphenous is where you stop. So you have femoral, great saphenous, popliteal, small saphenous, and you're done with the leg. For veins, next is arteries. And again, once you have your veins done, arteries are easy. Alright, so for arteries, we're going to go back up to the aorta in the abdominal pelvic cavity, and we'll start from the top and work our way down. Okay, so for the lower arteries, the first thing we're going to do is lift back the stomach, the spleen, and the liver and expose the back of the body wall. And we have to find the abdominal aorta. So to do that, we're going to go through all of this connective tissue along the back of the body wall. You're just going to poke through it. See that little hole I made? Don't be shy to do that. Just do it. And then you're going to just, it's a little more fibrous in the peritoneum because it is connective tissue. And you're just going to take that fibrous layer off of the back of the body wall. Okay, so there's our aorta, nice tube coming from the back of the body wall. That's our descending abdominal aorta. The first branch off of that is the celiac trunk. So I've removed connective tissue off of that. I actually utilized that to find my aorta through all this muscle. Here's your celiac trunk. The celiac trunk has 3 branches. Common hepatic, which is going to go to the liver, and that will be the first branch. Then a left gastric, which is going to go to the stomach, and then a splenic. So again, blunt dissection. I'm just going through connective tissue and fat here, exposing my branches. Okay, here's the celiac trunk. This branch is going under the stomach out to the liver. So that's your common hepatic. This branch, this next one up, right here, is going to the stomach. I can tug on it gently, and the stomach comes with it. Then, the last bit of the celiac trunk goes up to the spleen. Here and here. It actually divides, so that spleen is a long organ. And so all the rest of this is splenic artery. The next branch off of the aorta is the superior mesenteric artery. So you're just going to be careful not to bust through this adrenal gland and suprarenal vein. Just clean this off, find the next branch. This is celiac trunk. Next branch is right here. This will be connective tissue. Here's the next branch off of the aorta, superior mesenteric. That's going to give rise to intestinals, pancreatico-duodenal, and the ileocecal artery, which goes to the ileocecal valve. So, we're not going to try to go through all of that. We're going to find those vessels individually. The intestinals are the easiest. All you have to do is look in the mesentery, and anything that's pink are your intestinal arteries. They deliver blood to the small intestines. Now, the pancreatico-duodenal is easy. You're going to find the end of the pancreas. So remember, the head curls around the duodenum. And because it's called pancreatico-duodenal, it's going to deliver blood to the pancreas and the duodenum. So you're just going to go at the end of the head of the pancreas, through the pancreatic tissue and the serosa, and just blunt dissection, and you'll find a little pink vessel right next to a blue one. A yellow one. The yellow ones are the veins, which are part of the hepatic portal system. So this company has used a different color with yellow for those veins, indicating hepatic portal. Now it's hard to see this with the video, but there's a pink one that didn't take up a lot of paint right next to it. Pancreatico-duodenal. Then you're going to have ileocecal. And the ileocecal is going to go to the ileocecal valve. So you're going to find where the small intestine meets the large intestine. Here it is, ileum, cecum, ileocecal valve. And you're just going to blunt dissection that away, going through some of the mesentery and the fat. And there's going to be a lot of lymph nodes in this area, and you can just lift those away. Okay. And the pink vessel right next to the yellow one, oops, I almost tore the yellow one off. It's going to be the pancreatico-duodenal artery. And there it is. This pink one here. The cat hasn't taken up a whole lot of paint in this area. You can see the yellow one right next to it, the pink one. Ileocecal artery. Ileocecal vein, which happens to be yellow because it's part of the hepatic portal system. Okay, so those were the three off of the superior mesenteric. Ileocecal, ileocecal valve, they call it the ileocolic artery. And then you had intestinals, anything that's pink in there. And then you had your pancreatico-duodenal there. Okay, now the next branch down will be your suprarenal artery, going to the suprarenal gland. Not much to it, and in some cases it won't even have taken up paint. Some of you will have a difficult time even finding it. Then you're going to have an artery going to the kidney, and it's going to be right next to the vein. So here's that vein. There's your artery, renal artery. Then you're going to have some lumbars, which we saw in the vein. You just go to your aorta. Move this colon over. Here's the aorta. And you just move the aorta back a little bit, separate it from the vena cava. Any little pink branches, they're going back along the lumbar region, are going to be your lumbar arteries. And they're usually right next to the veins. And the arteries are always smaller, so it might be more difficult to find them. They may not have taken up a lot of paint. Okay. Here's a nice iliolumbar vein. Lumbar vein. There's a nice lumbar artery next to it. Then you have your iliolumbar artery, which is right next to the vein. And then the bottom of that aorta is going to divide and deliver blood to the lower limbs. Alright, so the vena cava is going to be over it. And you're just doing blunt dissection in here. Here's the end of my aorta, right there. Okay, garbage out of the way. Stuff going to and from the bladder, you can move. Oh, this got cut off. Okay, there's the end of my aorta. The split is your cat doesn't have a common, so you're going to see the common on Adam. External iliac artery, and then internal iliac arteries. The other one down here is coming up with the bladder stuff. So farther away from the midline, external, then internal. External, then internal. You're going to see a common on Adam. Alright, now once you're in the limb, the arteries are easier because there's no saphenous stuff. So right outside of the pelvic wall, femoral artery, and then the femoral artery just becomes the popliteal artery behind the knee. So you have aorta, external iliac, internal iliac, femoral, popliteal. Okay, so the last part of the dissection you're going to do is the hepatic portal system, and you want to have the small intestines off to the right, the colon just laid off to the left, careful not to break off that inferior mesenteric artery. And then what you're going to do is look between the duodenum coming out of the stomach and your intestines, and you're going to have a yellow vessel running down the center. The yellow has been used for hepatic portal veins, so that you know that they belong to that system. And you're just going to use blunt dissection and remove the connective tissue so it is very clear that you have a vessel there. And that vessel is the superior mesenteric vein. Now, on the other side of the duodenum, it becomes the hepatic portal vein. So you just, between the liver and the duodenum, you're going to go through all of these ducts for the gallbladder and the pancreas and this connective tissue. And what you're going to do is use your scalpel as a scraping tool. Now, you're going to scrape, and it's going to seem like you're doing a lot of scraping and you haven't found anything yet. And that's because this vein is way down against the back of the body wall. But you're looking for a huge yellow vessel. Once you find it, you're going to go back to blunt dissection, clear off the connective tissue. This big yellow vessel here is your hepatic portal vein. So it's superior mesenteric below the duodenum, hepatic portal vein above it. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to do is find the superior pancreaticoduodenal vein, which has to go to the pancreas and duodenum, and it's superior versus down here would be inferior. And you're just going to use your probe and go literally through the pancreas material until you find a branch of the superior mesenteric that goes to the pancreas and duodenum. And here it is. So this yellow branch here, pancreaticoduodenal vein superior. Now we're going to find the same thing inferiorly. So I'm just going to temporarily flop the small intestines over. And we actually uncovered it earlier when we did the artery. So this yellow guy is inferior, for farther from the head, pancreaticoduodenal vein, that yellow guy. Alright, we're also going to have a gastroepiploic vein, which is going to come along the greater curvature of the stomach. And usually it only takes that paint in the very end of the stomach at the pyloric region. So what you're going to do is hold on to some of the greater omentum and use, again, your scalpel as a scraping tool just to uncover the vessels that are at the edge of the stomach, kind of embedded in this omentum. And you immediately go back to blunt dissection. This yellow vessel here is your gastroepiploic vein. Alright, now splenic. That has to go to the spleen. So you find the spleen. Okay, and it's going to be running from the superior mesenteric vein to the spleen. And so you're going to go through pancreas and some mesentery and so forth. Here it is. And you're just going to go, don't need the pancreas anymore, straight through all of this and follow that vessel. There he is, all the way to the spleen, splenic vein. Okay, now you're going to have an inferior mesenteric vein that's coming from the colon and bringing blood to the superior mesenteric. So, you're going to go along the colon, remove some of this mesocolon. You'll find a yellow branch in here going to the superior mesenteric vein. Now, I can tell that these two are connected, superior mesenteric vein, and there's a yellow vessel under some of this connective tissue. There it is. Inferior mesenteric vein. That's taking blood from the colon and delivering it to the superior mesenteric vein. Then you're going to have the ileocolic vein, and we uncovered this from the back to find the artery. So you're just going through some more of this tissue here, this lymph node out of the way, and there is your ileocolic vein. That was your inferior mesenteric, superior mesenteric. Intestinal veins will be right next to the arteries, and they're yellow. Inferior pancreaticoduodenal, superior pancreaticoduodenal, superior mesenteric, splenic, and on the other side of the duodenum, hepatic portal vein. And then you have your gastroepiploic along the greater curvature. Okay, for the hepatic veins, you're going to cut about 1/2 of an inch off of the top of the liver. But when you do your cut, you don't want to cut all the way back to the body wall because you'll cut off the inferior vena cava, which is underneath the heart and the lungs, going through the diaphragm. So you don't want to cut that off. Now, you're just going to take your scalpel and remove the top about 1/2 inch of the liver. Ooh, that's beautiful. I don't normally say that about the liver, but you already have your left hepatic vein here, and you're not trying to isolate the veins as a tube. You're literally slicing through them to see the track of it. So this is in the left lobe, left hepatic vein. Now, in the right lobe, you're going to have a middle about right here, and then your right way over here along the edge of the liver. So I'm going to cut the rest of that piece off that I started. Looks like I have some leaking of dye paint, so it might be hard to see this side. That's not going to be very good. Some of you will find that your paint leaked all over your liver and you won't be able to identify these vessels, but you're going to try. Oh, there's a good piece of it. Okay, this blue track right here is the middle hepatic vein. Now you're going to go all the way to the side to find the right. You're just going to, again, keep shaving away little bits at a time until you see that blue track of paint on the right. And there it is. Let's get these pieces out of the way. Way down under there, you got your right. So you have right hepatic vein, middle hepatic vein, left hepatic vein, leaving the top of the liver to the vena cava.